Hi, Recap Master here. The story begins with a family on a much-anticipated vacation, cruising the warm waters of the Caribbean Ocean on their boat. Tom, an experienced oceanographer and marine scientist, is on a research break with his wife Julia and their two children, Casey and Ben. The trip is meant to celebrate Ben's birthday, and the family is excited to enjoy a few days on the water, surrounded by the beauty of the open ocean. As the day goes on, the family is having fun, sunbathing, swimming, and soaking up the peaceful surroundings. But Julia, who is always intrigued by the ocean, decides to take a swim. The water feels unusually warm, and there's something odd about the way the current moves today. Julia brushes off the sensation, thinking it's just a passing feeling, and swims a little further from the boat. Meanwhile, Tom is absorbed in the equipment on board as he checks on a few marine data instruments. He doesn't realize that one by one, the devices are starting to malfunction. He is also completely unaware that his wife is swimming farther and farther away. Meanwhile, Julia starts to feel the water shifting around her, pulling in strange directions. It's like the ocean itself has started to change its flow, tugging at her with an unnatural force. She calls out to her family, but the boat has drifted too far. Panic begins to creep in as she feels herself being pulled away from the boat. The water around her is swirling, and no matter how hard she swims, she can't seem to get closer to the boat. Back on the boat, Tom finally notices Julia's distress. He sees her frantically waving her arms, shouting for help, and realizes something is terribly wrong. Without thinking, he immediately turns the boat around and speeds toward her, jumping into the water once they're close enough. The current is fierce, but he fights against it and manages to reach Julia. Soon after, he gets near the boat and the children help them up. Julia is finally safe, but she's shaken by the near-death experience. Meanwhile, Tom is furious at Julia for not informing anyone before swimming so far out. He had always warned them to never wander off without letting someone know. Julia apologizes, feeling guilty for causing a scare and breaking the rules. As the day goes on, they decide to put the incident behind them. After all, it's Ben's birthday, and they don't want to let anything ruin their time together. Later that evening, the family decorates the boat and showers the boy with gifts. The atmosphere is cheerful, and they take several pictures to capture the moment. After a while, Casey receives a video call from her boyfriend. As she speaks with him, she excitedly tells him how much fun they're having, but he appears to be worried. He warns her that the news is reporting major storms not only around their area, but all over the world. The sudden shift in the weather unnerves Casey, and she begins to wonder how the conditions could have changed so drastically. Before she can ask him for more details, the connection fails, and the call ends. Panicked, Casey rushes to her family and tells them about the storms. Just as they begin to process the news, a loud noise interrupts their conversation. They rush outside to investigate and are shocked to find a large group of whales surrounding their boat. This unusual behavior alarms them, as it's highly uncommon for whales to gather in this area. What's worse is that one of them had collided with their boat, and now the engine isn't working. Hence, Tom dives into the water to assess the situation. When he returns a while later, he has a large gash on his shoulder, caused by some debris. Julia quickly tends to the wound, while Tom explains that the engine's damage is beyond repair now. This means that they'll have to call for help, and are stuck here for the time being. Shortly after, Casey goes to the deck and tries to make a call, but there's no signal. The radio isn't working as well, alongside all the electronic devices on board. This puzzles the family, and they wonder why all their communication systems suddenly stopped working. Tom, thinking rationally, calculates that they have enough food and water for 4 days. Since their boat is on a known shipping route, they figure passing ships will eventually spot them. But the uncertainty of the outside world starts to worry them, as they have no idea what's happening beyond their small boat. As they try to wrap their heads around the situation, the family hears loud noises coming from above. They rush outside and shockingly see debris falling from the sky. In a state of panic, Tom decides to move the boat, even though the engine is barely working. They somehow manage to avoid the last of the falling debris, but now the engine is completely destroyed. The boat is stuck in the water, and it's clear they are now stranded. Tom deduces that the objects falling from the sky are actually satellites that have somehow fallen from orbit. This explains why their phones and radio stopped working. Suddenly, the sky darkens as a powerful storm begins to form over the ocean. The boat starts to shake violently, rocking in the fierce winds and waves. Tom takes quick action, gathering the family on the upper deck and ensuring they're all wearing life jackets in case the boat capsizes. He also lights a flare to call for help, but there's no one as far as the eyes can see. As if things couldn't get stranger, the family begins to feel a shift in gravity. Blood starts flowing from their noses, and they realize that something really terrible is happening. Panicked, the family huddles together,
trying to stay calm as the storm rages through the night. Despite the chaos, they somehow remain unscathed. When they wake up the next morning, they're greeted with an unimaginable sight. Their boat is completely wrecked. The strange thing is that despite having large holes in the boat, water has not come inside. The family then steps outside to investigate, and what they see leaves them speechless. The ocean that they were in a few hours ago is gone. Instead, they're in the middle of a vast desert. However, as they look around in confusion, they realize that they're not actually in a desert at all. They're still in the ocean, but all the water has disappeared. This means that the outside world might no longer have any survivors. After all, 70% of the Earth's surface is water, and if that shifts to the remaining 30%, no one would be able to survive. Meanwhile, Tom looks at the compass and notices it's malfunctioning. He quickly comes to the conclusion that the Earth's magnetic poles must have shifted. It is why the ocean has been completely drained of its water. Meanwhile, a devastated Casey runs to her room, unable to process everything that's happening. She is certain that her boyfriend has died, along with everyone else she knows and billions of other people. On the other hand, Ben is reacting to this differently. He casually grabs his birthday balloons and releases them in the sky. Ben hopes that maybe someone will notice them and come to their rescue, much like a help signal. Tom, being the head of the family, also doesn't give up. He rushes to the radio and tries to make a connection. After what feels like an eternity, he finally gets a response from a small submarine. The man on the other end introduces himself as NATO and begins to explain his situation. NATO was on a mission the previous night, deep underwater in a submarine, but then everything changed in an instant, and he's left as the only survivor. According to NATO's calculations, the water will return to its original position in about a week. He can survive in the submarine, but Tom will need to get to higher ground before the water comes back. Upon hearing this, Tom becomes desperate to save his family. He urges NATO to take them in as well, as they have nowhere to go. NATO hesitates for a moment and explains that the submarine is too small to accommodate more than 3 people. The air supply is already limited, and space is tight. It's just not feasible to fit more people on board. But Tom, determined to keep his family safe, insists that he will only bring his 2 children to the submarine, and he will go on foot with his wife to higher ground. He offers NATO all the food they have left in exchange for letting his family aboard. After a long pause, NATO finally agrees to the deal. He then tells Tom his location, and the latter marks it on his map. Following this, Tom has an emotional discussion with his wife. He asserts that they must reach the submarine in no more than 2 days, a journey that will test their limits. Tom assures Julia that once they reach the submarine, they can leave their children and then search for higher ground. Julia knows that it is a dangerous plan, but she agrees to it. A few hours later, the family finishes packing all their supplies, food, water, and anything else they can carry. They're just about to leave when Tom notices a man in the distance. He's walking slowly, accompanied by a dog. The man looks hurt, and Tom's first instinct is to help. He offers the man a bottle of water, hoping to ease his suffering. But in a shocking and violent turn of events, the man suddenly attacks. Before poor Tom can react, the man pulls out a spear and fatally strikes him. Julia, who witnesses everything, screams in horror. She tries to rush to her husband's aid, but the dog keeps her at bay. Realizing that Tom is beyond saving, she rushes back to the boat, but the man begins to pursue her and even manages to injure her arm. Nonetheless, she somehow gets on the deck and barricades the door. She then hides her children in a locker and hands Casey a flare gun. Julia tells her to use it only if it's necessary. After this, she heads to the bathroom and starts patching up her wound. Meanwhile, the man breaks into the cabin and starts stuffing himself with wood. It is evident that he's a scavenger who has come here for supplies. As he roams around the boat, Julia arms herself with a kitchen knife. The man soon reaches the room where she's at, but Julia manages to jump overboard at the last second. The man then peeks through a hole there, but he's unable to see Julia. Just when the danger seems to be averted, the vicious dog spots Julia and starts barking. It then launches a deadly attack, but she manages to kill it with her knife. The man hears the commotion and comes out to check. He is devastated to see that his beloved dog has died and guns for revenge. In the meantime, Julia re-enters the boat through the front and prepares for a fight. She tries to sneak up on the man, but he manages to overpower her. Julia tries to fight back with all her might, but to no avail. The man beats her brutally and proceeds to strangle her. As all of this is happening, Casey watches everything from her hiding place. Realizing that her mother needs help, she makes a bold move. She comes out of the closet and fires her flare gun at the man, sending him flying. But in the process, the boat catches fire and starts burning at an alarming rate. Julia immediately grabs her kids and tells them to get out of the boat. She then heads to the kitchen to retrieve some of the supplies. At this moment, the man once again reappears and tries to attack her, but Julia kicks him away and manages to escape with a few supply bags. She soon joins her children, who are with their dead father. They are crying hysterically, mourning his painful loss. But Julia urges them to leave when she notices that the man has survived once again. Despite his injuries, he is still coming at them, probably for the supply bags. As the family rushes away from there, the boat explodes, destroying everything inside it for good. In the next scene, the trio reaches a small canyon where a stream is flowing, but the water is undrinkable as it is salty and may lead to death. As the family catches their breath, Ben starts crying once again. He blames himself for his father's death as he believes his balloons attracted the killer. Had he never released them, such a situation wouldn't have come. However, Julia assures him that it's not his fault, and they must keep pushing forward if they want to live. Just then, they spot the man in the distance, still hell-bent on retrieving the supplies. This scares the life out of them, and they immediately leave. That evening, Ben comes across the body of a hammerhead shark. Hungry and desperate, he attempts to butcher it, but Julia quickly notices their pursuer in the distance and orders the children to run. They know they are being hunted, and Julia doesn't want to waste any more time. After a while, they come across an area which is full of barrels containing toxic waste. Julia knows it's dangerous, but she urges the children forward, telling them to keep moving. She is fully aware that the man chasing them could catch up at any moment. As they push forward, they come across a region full of plastic and human waste. This was once the bed of the ocean, showing how much damage the humans had done to nature. After a while, Julia notices that Ben is showing signs of severe dehydration. His lips are cracked, and he's stumbling more with every step. Worried, Julia gives him the final drops of water from their dwindling supply. Ben gulps it down, but it doesn't do much to ease his condition. Meanwhile, Cassie, who has been holding it together, finally breaks down. She sobs uncontrollably, convinced that they have no chance of surviving in this hellish wasteland. However, Julia shouts that they must keep moving forward, for survival's sake. Despite her own doubts, she pushes her children, urging them not to give up. Eventually, after hours of walking, they come across an old airplane wreck. The fuselage is half buried in sand, but it provides a place to rest. The family crawls inside, desperate for a moment of respite. Julia then takes out the last photograph of their family, taken just before everything went wrong. She stares at it and recalls the day she first met Tom. It was at the hospital, where he was brought in with decompression sickness after a failed dive. Julia remembers how concerned she had been for him, how they had bonded over his recovery. The children also mourn their father and remember all the good moments they had spent together. Later that night, Cassie is awakened by a noise outside the wreck. Curious and worried, she steps out to check what it is. The killer soon approaches her from behind, completely unaware that it's a trap, and as soon as he comes near Casey, Julia attacks him from behind. She stabs him repeatedly with her knife, ending his pathetic life for good. This brings slight relief to the family, as they have avenged Tom. Early the next morning, when the family prepares to leave, they are horrified to discover that the killer's body has been scavenged. This means that they are not alone, and something very dangerous is lurking out there. Later, as Julia is busy looking at her map, Ben suddenly bolts ahead of them. His mother yells for him to stop, but the boy doesn't listen. He runs toward a small, salty puddle of water and begins drinking desperately. Julia sprints after him and yanks him out of there, but the boy has already drunk a considerable amount of water. This immediately makes him sick, and he becomes too weak to carry on walking. Julia is incensed by the turn of events, as they are already running out of time, but she doesn't crack under the stress and calmly carries her son, along with Casey's help. Luckily, they soon find several plastic chairs scattered around, from which they build a makeshift shelter. Julia, who is a nurse by profession, always carries first aid with her. She whips out one of her syringes and uses it on her son, hoping it will ease his condition. The family then falls asleep, cuddling each other tightly. A few hours later, Julia is jolted awake when she hears strange noises coming from outside. She steps out to inspect and is shocked to the core by what she sees. Julia thus immediately awakens her children, and they all run away from there. Soon, they spot a large ship in the distance with several containers lying around. The family also notices some survivors and screams for help. But when they reach the place, the survivors frantically run for cover, running into one of the containers. They have seen the same horrifying sight Julia had noticed: a swarm of giant crabs. The people lock themselves in the container, refusing to open the door, even as Julia calls out to them for help. With time running out, the family climbs on top of one of the containers. Julia is bitten in her leg and seriously injured, but she manages to get away from them. As they sit atop the container, the family hears the horrifying cries of the other survivors. The crabs have infiltrated the container and are killing all the humans one by one. Even bullets are of no use against these giant beasts who are hungry for flesh. Meanwhile, Julia ties a scarf around her leg to stop the bleeding, but she eventually passes out due to exhaustion. The next morning, Julia wakes up to find that her children are nowhere in sight. The silence around her is unsettling, but as she looks around, she notices there are no crabs in the area anymore. Soon, Ben and Casey return, explaining they had gone out to search for food and supplies after the crabs had left. Julia, who is still shaken by everything that's happened, first takes care of her wounds. She grabs a lighter and cauterizes it. Meanwhile, her children gather the weapons that the survivors had left behind, preparing for the worst in case of another attack. They also manage to find some food and water, which brings a little relief to them. After some time, Julia comes across the body of a deceased survivor. She grabs the radio from his belongings and attempts to reach out to Nato once again. After a brief moment of static, the radio crackles to life, and it's Nato on the other end. He reveals that he too had been attacked by the crabs, and he's severely injured. Nato further discloses some disturbing news. He explains that the crabs had come this way because the ocean water is returning much sooner than expected. The tides are already rising, and the sea will reclaim the land in just a few hours. He warns Julia that they need to arrive at the submarine as soon as possible, or they will be swept away by the waves. Upon hearing this, Julia is devastated as she no longer has her map. She reveals that she lost it a while ago during the chaos. Finding the submarine without it is next to impossible. However, Nato is determined not to leave them stranded. He fires a flare into the sky, which the family notices from a distance. They realize that the submarine is just a few kilometers away, which brings them some hope. With renewed determination, they start their journey toward the submarine. After a short while, they spot it in the distance, standing tall in the middle of an open field. But between them and the submarine lies a large rocky barrier created by the crashing sea waves. As they approach, Casey expresses her worry about what will happen once they reach the submarine. Only 3 people can fit inside, and Nato can only take the children. However, Julia tells her not to worry about that just yet. The priority is reaching the submarine first, and they'll figure out the rest later. The family then continues moving forward, carefully navigating the rocky terrain. But just as they're about to cross, a large boulder falls, separating Julia from her children. Realizing that they don't have much time left, Julia urges them to go ahead without her. She promises to find a way across and join them soon. The kids don't want to leave their mother alone, but when she continues insisting, they reluctantly go away. They then run towards the submarine and meet Nato, who is badly injured. He tells them he might not survive much longer, but they can still escape in the submarine. Nato also explains that since he won't make it, they can take another member along with them. Upon hearing this, Casey immediately decides she has to go back and find her mother. She is determined to bring Julia back so they can all escape together. Back at the rocky barrier, Julia is being attacked by a large number of crabs, and she tries her best to find them off. She fires her weapon, but with each shot, her ammunition runs lower. Just as the crabs close in, Casey arrives in time to help her. She extends her hand, and Julia grabs it to safely escape from there. They then run with all of their remaining energy and reach the submarine. The family immediately climbs up while an injured Nato is killed by the crabs. At this moment, a large wave is seen in the distance, signaling that the oceans have returned. But the family doesn't stick around to witness it. They frantically close the hatch and embrace themselves for impact. Soon enough, they are caught in the deadly waves, shaking everyone violently. The ocean has finally returned, and the barren landscape is about to change once again. At this intense moment, Julia has flashbacks of the entire events that led them here. She thinks of her son's birthday, her husband's death, and everything strange that has happened. As the waves continue to batter the submarine, Julia passes out. Hours later, they awaken to find that the submarine has come to a stop. The atmosphere feels different, almost as if they're no longer underwater. Julia then opens the hatch, and when they step outside, they are shocked to the core. The submarine has returned to the city, which is now ravaged and torn apart. The once bustling place is now eerily silent, and not a single person is in sight. It's clear that they are the last survivors in this destroyed world. The weight of that realization hits Julia like a ton of bricks. And with that, the movie comes to an end. If you enjoyed this movie recap, please like the video and comment below what movie we should recap next. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe to our channel, and until next time guys, I will see you in the next one. Take care.